You're listening to the Strong and Capable podcast with your host, Brigette Heller.
Hello. Welcome to this episode of the Strong and Capable podcast. I'm your host, Brigette Heller, and I am so very excited. I always say that. I'm so very excited, but I am so very excited for our guest today. I have the fabulous Miss Jody Moore on the podcast. If you know her, you already love her. And if you don't know her, you're about to love her. You want to say hey to the audience?
Yes. Hi, Brigette. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Me too. So this season, we're really focused on the journey, the overcoming, what that process looks like, and what are the specific tools that helped you overcome the journey. I've been following Jody a long time. And I told her she's got the best style going on. And she's light. And I love that you just speak truth. It's not complicated. It's not drama. It's just like, here's what's going on, or here's the truth, and here's how you work through it. And I'm guessing that's why so many women are drawn to you, because it's not intense. It's like there's this confident assurance that comes with you when you're a coach.
Well, that's very kind of you to say. Thank you. I do view my job as being a truth teller when I'm coaching. And I think that when we're ready to hear the truth can be a gift. So I'm lucky I get to do that.
Yes. And I think it's interesting you say that, because as women, especially, we're truth seekers, I believe, naturally, but we don't always want to hear the truth when it comes to us.
That's right.
We think we want it, but then it comes, and it sometimes takes a hot minute to process that truth.
Yeah, it can be hard to hear. I mean, the really simple analogy when I'm training other coaches is I'm like, listen, when you're coaching, your job isn't to make people feel good. Not that we're trying to make people feel bad by any means, but your job is to tell them the truth. And I'm trying to be just an objective mirror, if you will. The mirror just shows you what you look like. It doesn't say you look great, you look terrible, love your outfit, seems like you gained some weight. It doesn't, that's all us. The mirror's just like, here's what you look like. And that's what we're trying to do as coaches, or sometimes I'll use the analogy, like it's our job to tell people when they have lettuce in their teeth. And then they get to decide what they want to do about it, if anything. But our job is to point things out that, because all of us, including myself, we all have blind spots that we can't see on our own. So anyway.
Blind spots are so real. I think it takes an awareness to start to identify those blind spots. So you have to wake up and become aware first. And then I did this challenge a year ago now. Oh my gosh. And I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's the 20-hour walk.
No, I've not heard of this.
So you just go out for, I said 20 hours, 12 hours. I apologize.
Okay.
12-hour walk, but you start at 5 a.m., 6 a.m., whatever, and you walk for 12 hours. No music. No, anything. It's just you and your mind. Just you and your brain.
That sounds scary.
I thought it would be, but it's not as scary up there as it maybe was at one point, honestly.
Okay, good.
But I thought a lot about blind spots, because as you're with yourself, you start to see them in quiet, in stillness, without distraction. Blind spots are a lot easier to see. And I remember crossing the crosswalk and realizing, like, when I was in a hurry, I wasn't aware of everything around me. I was just trying to get across the crosswalk. But when I was walking still and on the path, I could see all the things. I was aware of any dogs coming, any cars coming my way, any danger. I was actually aware of it. But when I was rushing, I wasn't.
Ooh, that's such a good point. Because we have so much distraction all the time now that we're probably losing some self-awareness if we don't take the time to intentionally quiet it like that. That's interesting. Yeah.
It sure was to me. I was like, that was a challenge. I would say anyone should do the 12-hour walk, because being with your own mind is important. You got to know what's happening up there.
And I think that's where we get inspiration and ideas too. I think there's a lot of good that could come from that.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your journey. For those who don't know you, you were a stay-at-home mom. That's where it started. And what happened here?
Okay. So I should preface that I worked in corporate for a long time and then got laid off. And so was a sudden overnight stay-at-home mom to 3 kids. And I hadn't been planning on that. And so that was pretty shocking for me. And I was just really sort of like, what's going on? At one point I felt like I needed to work to help financially, but by the time I got laid off, my husband had a good job, and if we just cut our expenses and really watched our budget, we could get by on one income. So I kind of thought maybe this is God trying to tell me I need to stay home with my kids. Maybe that's what he wants. I had 3 kids at the time. They were 7, 6, and a couple months. And at the same time I was scared and just major identity crisis happening right after losing my job. And I decided I was like, okay, I'm not going to apply for another job. Like, I'm not going to get on LinkedIn or whatever. I'll stay home with my kids, but I really want to go to this class. And there was a life coach certification that had just opened up near my house. And the woman who taught it, Brooke Castillo, I had followed her for a while, and I'd studied her work a little bit and really loved everything she taught. So it was a lot of money and it was kind of a scary step, but I was like, I don't know. I think I'm just going to be home with my kids, but I want to go to this class because I'm such a wreck. I wanted it more to help me cope with like this new place in my life. But by the end of that training, I just couldn't stop talking about all the tools. It had been so transformative for me. Not that I was like totally fixed and better, but I could feel myself progressing faster than I ever had. And I was excited about my life again, even though I still didn't know what I was going to be doing. And I couldn't stop talking about it and trying to share it with everyone I knew. And so that is what launched my coaching practice that I do today. Almost 10 years later now, I've coached thousands of people and continue to be excited and talking about these tools all the time. So that was really a pivotal moment for me going to that training.
This really resonates with me. I was in a job, got laid off 2020. Honestly got laid off because I demanded more. I asked for more and they said no. And I was like, then I value myself more than this.
Good for you, girl.
It was good, except for when they said no, I went through what you're describing. I was like, oh, well, and it's taken me a lot of coaching, a lot of mentors to reset my identity. Really, who am I? What does that look like? Where am I going? And it's made me passionate about understanding divine identity, because that's your bedrock. That's your thing.
Right. So. Yeah. Well, when we get our identity from whether it be a job or being a mom, whatever it is, if all of our fulfillment and our validation and our identity comes from that thing we do, that thing is likely going to change at some point. Like right? Either like you and I, we got laid off, or the kids are going to leave the house at one point. And then you realize, wait a second, that I can't build my foundation on the thing I do. That never was my identity or your identity. We just thought it was. And that's good to know.
Yep.
So that you can build it, like you said, on something more solid.
Yes. So the visual I like for identity, like world identity versus divine identity, is a Picasso painting, because it's just like you look at it and you're like, what's funky about this? I don't know what to do with that. And, Picasso is like a funny nose over here that's purple and then a green eye, or just everything's wacky. And then when your world identity, your jobs, your identity as a parent or not parent or dog mom or whatever you are, when it shifts, then it feels even more awkward than the original Picasso painting. But your divine identity is not like that at all. It's this layer underneath that is just solid and always the same. And I have this picture of it. It's a really beautiful painting of an angel, and she's all this light and colors around her. And so you can see the colors of the Picasso painting to this angel with the colors around her. And those are pieces of her, but they are not her. And I love, beautiful. It brought me so much peace, that visual. I was like, okay, I can see this now. I can understand this now. But I think the key is, as you already said, what are the tools then that you're going to use? So when you came to life coach school, and this is the same for me, as I've had mentors and paid wild amounts of money to go fly myself places and get trainings or do things. But you find these pieces that you need. right? To move
Yes.
forward and to help other people. So what were some of the things that just initially, what are some of the tools that you're like, oh, that's cool? What piqued your interest? What got you excited?
Well, the main tool that I teach a lot, and that was the introduction to me to all of it, is a tool that, again, was created by Brooke Castillo, who owns a life coach school, and it's called the model. And the essence of it is that our thoughts are creating all of our feelings, and that circumstances are not creating our feelings. And it sounds basic, a lot of people teach this in a lot of different ways. But like just this morning, I was getting my kids out the door to school, and my youngest daughter was really mad at me. She's in second grade, and she's like tiny. And she didn't want to go to school because she had a sore throat. And I told her she had to go anyway. So my daughter's pouting around the house. She won't talk to me. She won't look at me. She won't answer any questions, and I'm getting like irritated and frustrated. And my brain thinks that I'm frustrated and irritated because of how my daughter's acting, but that is never the case. I'm irritated and frustrated because of what I'm thinking about her behavior, the story I'm making up about her or about myself or whatever. And it's natural and normal to do that. It's not wrong. Sometimes when I teach this, people think, okay, I should think positive right now. Like, what should I think so I'm not frustrated? And that's not what I teach. I'm not trying to dehumanize us. It's natural that we have negative emotion, but I always want to stay in the driver's seat of my own experience. So rather than saying I'm frustrated because my daughter is mad at me, I'm frustrated because of what I'm thinking about my daughter being mad. And I don't even have to figure out the thoughts in the beginning, at least. And in many cases, I just need to stay empowered. Like, look at me frustrating myself with whatever I'm believing right now about this situation. That has been not only like in my family and my daily life, but even in growing my business, just knowing that I'm creating all my feelings. And then those feelings are determining who I become, what I do next, and what I then create in my life. That's essentially the model in a nutshell. Thoughts create feelings, feelings drive our actions, and those actions create our results. And we could go into as much or as little detail as you want, but that tool is at the foundation of everything that I teach. And it literally has changed my life, understanding it.
I agree. It's life-changing. And you said it's so simple, it seems simple, but practicing it day in, day out, those who are willing to continue to come to the simpleness of it are the ones I think who progress. I had the funniest story years ago. I spoke at church, and member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So I spoke at church, and I like to take complex things and make them really easy and logical. That's one of the things I love to do. It's like, okay, how can we simplify this, or give it an analogy? How can we make this like I can actually consume this? So I did that. And my husband, he likes to deep dive on things, and he likes details. And so afterwards, he actually went and talked to our bishop or pastor, and he said, she spoke so simple. And we were very young. We were very young married. He was very young. He would not put me down in that way, or he would understand it was a put down. But the guy looked at him, he said, that is a gift. That's actually, if you can understand something, so complicated and simplify it, that means you actually understand it. And I think that's really when it comes to thoughts and feelings and all of this, it sounds simple, but until it becomes simple, you don't understand it. You don't understand it. We try and deep dive all the time, and we got to stay surface first, be aware, and then move on it.
Yeah. And the way I like to think about the model is it's a tool that explains a lot about human behavior. It doesn't explain everything. It doesn't account for all factors. There are chemical and biological factors. There are things within our DNA and our wiring, and there's the experiences, trauma that shapes us. So there are other factors, but the model explains a lot about human behavior, and it just is whether when you say use it, one of the things I like to kind of point out to people, because people talk about that a lot. Well, I'm going to use the model and do this. I'm like, okay, but the model it just explains. It's like gravity. Gravity just is a thing. It keeps us from floating off of the earth. You don't have to be like, I'm going to use gravity today. Gravity just is. And the way someone defined gravity, it explains the way the world is. Okay. Now, understanding that gravity is a thing is really useful. You want to, if you understand it, then you don't do things like, jump out of high story windows thinking that you're going to fly, because you understand gravity. So it changes the way you interact with your environment and with the world. That's how the model is. When you understand the way that human beings operate, it changes the way you navigate both yourself and your goals and your interactions with other people. It actually helps us become much more compassionate. Let me give a quick example. So the way other people behave is coming from their thoughts and feelings as well, right? And that their feelings are created by their thoughts, not by us. We think that we create other people's feelings. We don't. Okay. We're their circumstance. And then what they choose to think determines how they feel and behave. So I'm responsible for me 100% in how I behave, but other people are responsible for how they react. Right. And knowing that is really important. So I had a friend, this was years ago, and she was a hairdresser or a stylist. Anyway, she was amazing. She'd gone to this conference in Vegas, some kind of hairstylist conference, right? With a whole bunch of people. And she's like, I'm so mad because I had this jacket I had bought right before I went. It was so cute. And someone stole it. And she was really upset about it. And she kept talking about it. And finally I was like, what if we just decide that the woman who stole it has a teenage daughter and she's struggling financially, and her daughter's about your size. She thought it was such a cute jacket, and she feels bad that she's not able to take care of her daughter the way she wants to. And in a kind of a moment of desperation, she took it. And my friend was like, oh my gosh, if that was true, I would give it to her even, maybe, like, I'm like, okay, that's what I mean. Like, here's the truth. Whether that woman is struggling in that, we don't know. Like, probably not. I made that story up, right? But what we do know is that when we steal, when we take things that aren't ours, it is coming from some kind of pain or hurt or injury or insecurity or fear. We do know that, right? Or mental illness. We either, when people like hurt people is what they say. So when you understand the model, you become a different version of you in the world. You become more compassionate. I'm not saying you don't have boundaries or stand up for yourself or any of that. We still need to do all of that work, but it also changes the way you create what you want in your life. You stop waiting for things outside you to change to feel better or to have what you want in your life. And that's when it gets really fun.
Yeah, I think it allows you to release any shame or, like you said, these stories we're telling ourselves, and consider the possibilities. What else could be true? What could possibly be true? And whether it's true or not actually doesn't matter if it releases you from the emotions and the things that are happening within you. Because your friend, that example you used, I mean, she was being stuck in her own frustration and anger. That wasn't productive to her or the people she was serving as a hairdresser. None of that.
And it's not punishing the person who stole her jacket. They don't even know. The other thing is, a lot of times with women, especially, we have these positive thoughts that sound useful that are actually really toxic. Like, most obvious one that I coach on a lot is, I just want to be a good mom. I'm like, how do you feel when you think that? Because we don't think that on the days we're doing well. We think that on the days that we fell short, or we're worried that our mother-in-law is judging us or whatever. We're like, I just feel so terrible because I just want to be a good mom. And I'm like, seems like that thought feels pretty awful to you. And it's not making you a better mom. It's not. It's making you a worse mom because you're full of shame and judgment. Now you're spinning in frustration, and then your kid's going to do whatever kids do, and you're probably going to yell at them because you're already upset. So that thought, I always encourage women to just get rid of it. Like, you are a good mom in some ways, and you're a bad mom some days. Yeah. In some ways. All right. What if we just embrace, like, I'm a human mom.
I'm a human mom. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, just the power of the way our thoughts are driving us is really at the root of this tool. And there's a lot of ways it can apply.
I just want to be reminds me of trying. I'm trying so hard. I'm trying. I just wish if only this would change. And all those things are just putting you in that place of lack. I do this thing called the 10-day I am challenge. And the first time I did it, I felt like a fraud because I could hardly get to, this was years ago, I could hardly get to 6 things versus let alone 10. I am strong, I am capable. That was using my own brand. I'm strong, I'm capable was 2, right? And I couldn't hardly get to 6. But one of them was, I am a good mom. My kids were younger. My baby's in high school. It's like a while to be in this new stage of life. But I remember them screaming and fighting in the background. They're getting ready for school. I'm trying to do this thing and record it. And they're screaming. And I'm like, I'm a good mom. And I felt for days, I felt like a fraud. And then I paused and it was like, you said, I was like, no, I am a good mom. I feed them. I clothe them. I care about them. I love them. Am I perfect? Absolutely not. Do I actually want to be perfect? I don't think so.
Yeah.
Because I don't know what that would look like, this ideal of perfect, but I am
Right.
a good mom and I'm just going to be at peace in that.
That's right. And for me, I find a lot of peace in embracing, and I'm not a good mom. Like some days, in some ways, some of the, like to be a good mom, you have to be good at everything, right? Like you think about these personality tests we take or whatever, these skills assessments, they're like, you're really good in, you're creative and you're a people person, but math and science is harder. To really be a good mom the way we think we should, you have to be good at everything. None of us are. So I'm a good mom and I'm not. And then when I have days when I fall short, I'm just like, yeah, you know what, kids, sorry, this is the mom you got. Some things I'm really good at, some things I'm not. I'm sorry. I'm working on it. I love you. We'll figure it out. But I'm a good mom and I'm not a good mom. And I embrace all of that. Actually makes me a better mom, ironically, because I feel better. I can be more patient. I can be more of who I want to be.
I think it makes you a better mom, like you said, and it makes your children better humans because they see you being real, being a person, accepting both sides of everything, and it gives them permission to do the same.
Hopefully. But I don't take it to that part only because, again, the way they interpret me is their business. And the tendency is to follow things up with, then it will help my children. And I just don't do that because I might have a child one day that's like, Mom, every time you said that, it just made me feel like you were making excuses. Like, I don't know how it's going to impact them. I only can know what feels like me at my best and what serves me. And I believe that probably serves my children best. But in the end, we just don't know. This is why they say we make our grandparents' mistakes, right? Because I heard a woman in church recently teaching a lesson and she was like, well, I just, my mom, I felt like wasn't around the house enough because of whatever she was working or whatever. And so I just like to be home and I like to, when they get home, I sit down on their bed and I'm just there all the time. Somebody else is going to, her kids might one day say, my mom didn't set an example for me of going out and pursuing your passion. I thought you had to sacrifice everything you wanted for your children. So I'm not doing that for my kids. I'm going to show them that I can be a woman in the world who pursues what you want. And then their kids will go, my mom wasn't home enough. Just, you have to just be cautious is all I'm saying of trying to control other people with your behavior. You have to decide what feels like me at my best. What is me being the most Christ-like or whatever you value, and let go of thinking that you're controlling even our children. We're not. We don't control them.
This is the hardest thing as a mom, because I think when they're little, you kind of do to some degree. It like not really. You think you do though. There's this false sense of illusion that you do.
Right.
And then they get older and you do not have control. Right. I mentioned my kids are older now. So now we've done teenager life a couple times and we're headed in with the third. He's 14, a freshman in high school. And they're very quick to tell you, like you said, every single one of my children views how I've parented wildly different. And the quality of person I am, very different. We have one that tells us we've done a great job and one that lets us know every mistake we've ever made in their opinion.
Right. That's like, exactly. Yes.
It's so humbling. So humbling.
Well, and that's why when you embrace, like, I'm going to be the best version of me. That's my goal always. right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm never going to be perfect at that. Some days I'm going to fall short of that goal, but that's always the goal, is to be the best version of me. Well, the best version of me is the exact mom that one of my kids prefers, and not the exact, like, not at all the mom another of my children will prefer. So
Mm-hmm.
I guess I just like, I think it's common for us as women, or especially when we decide like we're going to take care of ourselves, or we're going to, whatever it is, self-care, or pursuing something you're interested in or curious about. And we always follow it up with, yeah, because if I'm happy, then I'm a better mom to my kids. I'm like, maybe. I mean, probably, yeah, that makes sense to me. But why do we have to add that caveat? Why isn't it just enough that you deserve happiness? And I just believe that every one of us is responsible for our own happiness.
Mm-hmm.
I do. I think that we are responsible for meeting our own needs. And sometimes the people in our life will show up and provide something or act in a certain way that we like and makes it easier. But in the end, it's our job to meet our needs. It's our job to make us happy. And it's your kids' job to make them happy. And yes, when they're little, they're easier to manipulate. Or we are, of course, obviously need to have more of a hand in their lives in terms of
Mm-hmm.
helping them manage their choices and things. But it's still them creating their experience ultimately in the end. And it's just freeing to know that.
It is freeing. I love that you talked about, like, we don't have to have a reason. Sometimes I think as women, we like, if we add the justification, then it makes it okay to do the thing.
Yes.
But we don't need it. We don't need it. And there is more power in allowing yourself not to need it. You're actually empowering yourself more when you just be versus need that justification. I love that.
And it's uncomfortable, especially for women, but it brings them back to exactly what you were talking about in the beginning with divine identity. Like,
Mhm.
if you understand your divinity and your absolute value and worth, then you wouldn't need to justify it's okay to take care of myself because this will be good for my kids. You would understand that you are as valuable, you are amazingly valuable and need to be cared for as such. And
Mhm.
that's why I like to remove that last part, because it makes a lot of people uncomfortable. And that discomfort we want to dive into and take a look at and figure out what work we can do there in your relationship with yourself behind that.
So I guess the question would be, anytime, like, people listening, anytime you catch yourself saying, well, I'm doing this because of, maybe that because of, just asking the question, why do I need the because? Why do I need
Yes.
that?
Yeah.
What's here that I need to examine and, like you said, look at? Because there's something there if there's a because.
That's exactly right. So not that it's wrong to say it, right?
Mhm.
I'm not saying that everyone
Mhm.
has to stop saying that, but I love the way you worded it. Ask yourself the question, why do I need a because? Because
Mhm.
when we put our kids in soccer or send them to college, we're not like, well, yeah, we'll put you through college, or we'll send you to college, or it's a good idea for you to go to college because if you get a degree, that will be useful for your children one day. Or, yeah, we'll put you on the soccer team, Jimmy, because if you're more confident and having fun, then you'll probably be easier for the rest of the family to be around. We don't even bother with that. We're just like, you want to play soccer? Well, okay. Yeah, let's put you in soccer. Soccer's a good thing. And we know it that sports are good for kids. Like, we don't have to add the because. Why do we have to do that with us?
It's interesting you said we don't have to, but I actually think a lot of people do. And that's back to that control thing. If we're adding because to everything, that means we're trying to micromanage our life, micromanage our children, micromanage our schedules, whatever it is. If there's always a because, if you have to have that, that means you are trying to control everything. Most likely, it could be something else. There's always room for the and, always.
Yeah. Or I'm thinking it's a justification. Like, why do we have to justify spending money or spending time? I'm wondering if it's a little bit that, right? Like, if it's going to cost money, it's going to take time, it's going to be a sacrifice. We have to justify it. And I don't know that that's wrong. It's just interesting to think about. Like, do we need to justify
Mhm.
having experiences that evolve us as human beings? Because I think that's the point. And I think that
Mhm.
we get experiences that we don't ask for through challenges and trials that are opportunities to evolve, but we can also sign up for experiences. Those tend to be more fun. And I think that the evolution of us, and again, whatever people believe religiously, but I think this to become more divine, right? More like our heavenly parents. I think that's the whole point of this life.
I agree. It's all about evolution and transformation. So being open to that allows the journey to feel exciting, actually.
Yeah.
It allows you to approach with that curiosity and fun and play. And if it's drudgery, then it's going to take you, it's going to be just a different path. And I've walked both. So
yeah, me too.
Yeah, I've walked both.
And I still do.
And letting go can be the hardest thing. My middle guy, when he graduated, and I've told the story many places, he's heard it, so I don't feel bad telling it here. But when he graduated, I remember all the things I thought he was going to do. He basically said, I'm doing none of them. None, not one. I'm the decider of my own destiny. And he's graduating. It's supposed to be all this joy. And instead, I had a vision. I had a vision for him. And now I have to let it go. It's very hard. It's very hard. And so I was in my driveway. I'm literally bawling about this, understanding that I was having maybe too intensive emotions around this and that this was a control thing. I understood it logically, but I was still feeling these feelings. And I remember I was praying, and I do that a lot. And I just angry pray. And I was like, you know what? This is very hard. This is very, very hard to let go of this child and allow them to go into the world and just make their own choices. And maybe they're going to mess up, and maybe it's going to be really painful, and I just have to be okay with it. This is very hard for me.
Yeah.
And I don't know what they're going to do with their agency or their free will. I don't know. And that is just really stressful. And the answer I felt and heard back was, I know. I know.
That's so good.
I was like, huh. And I saw all of a sudden myself and my life and my mistakes and my triumphs and my whatever they were, all these moments. And that I had this loving deity who had allowed me to do this very journey. And so that I, in turn, need to let it go and allow him his journey, because that is his journey to take. Like you said there, it's all our individual journey to evolve and grow, whatever that path looks like.
Well, and what's so beautiful about that whole experience you just described is when you turned it back to this is hard, it doesn't mean it shouldn't be hard. It doesn't mean you have to feel happy and good all the time, but you were just acknowledging you, right? We get so focused on the kid and their choices and what they're doing. And we make it about this outside thing, but this is an internal experience. Like, this is hard being a mom, watching your kid make different choices than you thought they were going to make. And that's exactly what I'm talking about with the awareness, is becoming more aware of yourself and putting less emphasis on the things outside of you to try to feel better. You know what I mean? And it's easier said than done, but yeah.
No, what's interesting about that too, is once you get that awareness, you will treat, obviously you'll treat other people differently. That's like a given. As I say that out loud, that's obvious. But also, I found my sister passed away 10 years ago this January. And so many people would say, I'm sorry. This is kind of a classic grieving. I'm so sorry. And then you, as the person who lost something, you feel the need to comfort them because they're saying, I'm sorry. It's the most uncomfortable situation. And I think we find ourselves in this a lot when someone's suffering, when they're going through hard things. We try and comfort, but we don't really know. And what I found is when you have this awareness and you're doing the work, then basically you can say truth to them instead of what you think is socially acceptable. It allows a different pathway of communication. So when someone's going through something hard, I say, man, this is hard for you. Like this sucks. Instead of going, oh, you can get through it, or it's going to be okay. That's crap. They don't need to hear that from me a lot of times.
Yeah.
They just need to know I see you.
Yeah. It's true. And it is tricky, right? To know the right thing to say. I'm not great at this at all. But one of the things I found too, is I like to just even ask a question, right? Instead of like, oh, I'm so sorry to hear about your sister. I like to ask how are you feeling about it right now? Obviously, if they shared it was hard, you already know that. And I love your response. This is hard for you. But sometimes we don't know, right? Like when someone says, oh yeah, I got divorced last year. That's one that we're like, I'm sorry, or is it good? Are we glad?
Yeah.
Do we not want to get divorced? Yeah. So, but it really, anything can be, it's like you said, like you lost your sister. We would assume that was painful, but we don't know where you're at now. You might be at peace around it. So for us to go, oh, that's so hard. It's us projecting what we think we would feel, or maybe our own past experience. So to be, I love the validation piece. And I would just add to it also questioning, like, what would be, or like, do you want to talk about her? How are you feeling about it? What do you need today? What can I do to support you today? Asking the person to tell you, oh, I'm good. I don't want to talk about it. Or yeah, you know what? I never get to talk about her anymore. Nobody asks. I think that's the goal, is to let people be where they are. Like you said, whether they're struggling or not, let people be where they are. And that's tough to do though. Definitely.
It's so hard to not project your own
right
dialogue or feelings onto them. Like that is.
Yeah.
But it's really empowering. And if you want to create really healthy relationships that have good boundaries and all the things, honest, real communication without the junk is the healthiest ground, I think, for it to be built on. But it's a letting go of self to find that common ground.
I feel like we're so hungry for that. And I feel like we've gotten bad at it, myself included. Right. Like, how do we be real and connect and not just make all this small talk? You know?
I mean, well, you can hang out at my house. I'm horrible at small talk. I'm really bad.
I can tell you're good at getting real, and I like it. I really do.
Yeah, I'm really, really bad at small talk. I'm actually going on a girls' trip this weekend. So
none of us are good at it. It's weird and awkward.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it is. And when small talk is usually just not real, it's this mask we're putting on, or what we think we're supposed to be in the moment to fit in with whoever you're with. And it's uncomfortable.
Can we just put a message out there to anyone who works in the public sphere to stop asking, do you have any fun plans for the rest of the day? I was thinking about how, like, when I was growing up, small talk was either about the weather. Lived in Washington. It was about traffic when I lived in California, because the weather never changed. But the traffic, that's how we made small talk. How was the traffic getting here? And then now it's, do you have any fun plans for the rest of the day? Or do you have any fun plans for the weekend? And it's just the worst question, because none of us, I never have plans. I'm always like, coming here to this store, this was my plan. This was my fun outing for the day. And I know it's just people trying to be nice and connect, but it's the worst small talk. I hate it so much. There. I just want to put that out there.
No, I agree with you. In Arizona, we just all commiserate about the heat. How are you surviving this? Weather. How are you doing?
And we commiserate about winter here in Spokane.
Yes. So. But I love Spokane. I grew up in Missoula, Montana. So we always go over to Spokane to get, tax-free stuff.
Yeah, that's right.
There was shopping over in Spokane. So we go compared to our tiny town in Missoula, Montana.
Right.
But anyway, okay, Jody. So
sorry. I have go on all day.
I know. I really think we could. So as we wrap this up, for those who are like, I don't want to listen to you guys talk about this all day.
Yeah.
So if someone is like, I don't know where to start. I don't know where to start. She mentioned this model thing.
Yeah.
What is the tip? The number one tip you say, here's where you start. This is the beginning place for you. I mean, and everyone's different. We know that. But if you're stuck, if you're in overwhelm, if you're like, this life isn't awesome and not working out for me.
Yeah.
Where do you start?
You start by taking a look at your thoughts, and you can do that through just basic journaling. Just write down, I call it a thought download. So don't try to write something that sounds good that your posterity is going to read or anything like that. You just get what's in your head out onto a piece of paper so you can take a look at it, and you have to look at it knowing that they're not facts. You're going to think they're facts at first. Okay. Because we all do. We think our thoughts are just like our observations of the world. I think we're just telling you about what's true. But your observations are filled with your own opinions and based on your experience and just influenced by so many things. They're not facts. There might be a couple facts in there, but mostly they're going to be thoughts. And you just start noticing, okay, that's the view. That's the way I'm seeing things. That's why I'm feeling the way I am. Not that it's wrong, not that you need to change it right away, but just becoming aware of it. At some point, you may want to change some of it, and that will become available when you become just curious. Why am I choosing to think of it this way? I wonder. Of all the options available, of all this, like back to the girl with the jacket that got stolen, there's a million stories you could tell yourself because we'll never actually know, probably. Of all of the ones available, you're picking somebody was terrible and this isn't fair. Okay. You can. It's totally justifiable, but it doesn't feel very good. What else is possible? So really just looking at your thoughts is always the beginning.
I love it. I love it. So start with your thoughts. Start with your thoughts. And if people want to connect with you, how can they connect with you?
I have a podcast called Better Than Happy. And also, if I wrote a whole book, and the book's got a lot of ties to the LDS church. So even if you're a Christian, you'll see the connection between the work I teach as a coach in thought work and then the religious principles. And you can get my book for free. If you go to jodysfreebook.com, you'll just pay the shipping and we'll send it out to you. So whatever you prefer.
That. Yeah, that made me so happy when I thought that. And I love the title. And I remember I was like, oh yeah, the book, because Better Than Happy. Whenever someone says I'm worthy, that just doesn't do it for me. I'm like, no, you are more than worthy. Like, why are we stuck in I'm worthy? No, you are more than worthy. Let's get past barely feeling like I'm a beggar and it's possible for me. No, you are more than worthy. Let's go.
Yeah,
let's
you're
do it.
Extraordinary.
Yes.
Yeah, so good.
So I love it. Thank you. Thank you,
for
Jody,
having
coming
me
on.
on.
This
so
has
fun
been
to talk to you. Yes,
yeah,
very fun.
You too.